So the situation in Italy is the following. First and foremost, the magistrates or the judiciary was found to be guilty of actually orchestrating a defamatory and unjustly process against Salvini, which, by the way, doesn't want to go to court for the only case now that is against him, which I think is the Gregoretti or Giorgetti or something like that. And of course, he doesn't want to go because it clearly showed that the entire judiciary, well, not the entire, but a large part of the judiciary was against him, which, that's not the first time. Berlusconi was before him, and Crazzi before Berlusconi and Salvini, and there were many others. And are you surprised that people actually agreed with what Salvini was doing? The streets in Italy felt a bit safer than usual. He wanted to give not more guns to the police, but simply tasers, and there were people opposing that because it's a health risk or something like that, or inhumane, which I'm sorry, but the Italian police, despite it clearly showed that sometimes they were on that part of the wrong, sometimes, unlike the Carabinieri, which in Rome clearly sided with Miss Raggi, the mayor, and with Conte for a protest that wasn't authorized, which is very funny. You need the authorization from the state you're protesting to protest. It's ridiculous. If you are truly a 21st century or democracy, there's no need for protest. Why would you need, unless your state is completely authoritarian? I mean, you can see that many of the protests were done perfectly fine, but people still can get fined for uh, going in group despite respecting all the rules. Conte, what the hell are you doing? Do you want to be a new Stalin or a new Mussolini? Because that's what you look like. Conte hasn't lifted an actual finger to help us. I have to remind you that most countries that actually helped were not from the European Union. Germany, yes, lifted some with their Bundeswehr. No, sorry, what was? I don't remember the name. The German Air Force lifted some of our patients into their country, but Germany is trying to sabotage our tourist industry. They said no, go to somewhere else because actually there's still a lot of people who want to come to Italy for the summer, for the simple reason that a lot of those people don't have decent, warm beaches. So, and two of those countries that actually helped us were Albania and Somalia. Somalia, sorry. And I have to remind you that these two countries, which were one, the first was an integral part of Italy for like 7 years, but okay, only 7 years, and the other was an actual colony of Italy. Two, two. These two countries showed more empathy towards Italy, which was a former colonizer, or whatever you want to call it, than the whole of the entire European Union. That's absurd. But we know the European Union is just a front for a Fourth Reich, or for better word, a Merkel Reich, which, by the way, she hasn't. She has been basically unopposed in the last 18 years. She has ruled more years than that Austrian guy. That Austrian guy was a fellow artist who was a guy who liked pee and girls, a guy who had just one testicle and had a funny mustache. 18 years. If she's not a new leader in, how sometimes some Germans with a bit of brains call her. She has run unopposed despite all the flaws her party does. Why do you think so many in the Christian Democratic Union were so reluctant to accept her when she first entered the party? Not only because she was probably a former agent of the Stasi, because many still suspect that, even if there's no proof of that. Not only that, but she has been all of her opposers, regardless of political alignment, were squashed. Not physically, of course, metaphysically, that they were able to do anything. Anyone who opposed her was basically out of political life. Why do you think the uh, new parties sprang up after a while? Like Alternative for Deutschland. It's simple reason because most of them are defectors, probably from the CDU and other parties. We and people wonder why Merkel is not popular as used to be, because she's dictatorial. She seems not to care what other people think. She just wants her rights back. Why do you think that Poland, Hungary, Slovakia, and the Czech Republic are so reluctant to adopt the euro? Because they already had a taste of that 80 years ago. The Czechs are the most notable example. They were a protectorate, so to speak, a colony, to be more frank, and they didn't enjoy that. You have to thank the man with the iron heart for that. In fact, some countries from Visegrad, the Slavic countries from Visegrad, which are, well, the free ones, the first free ones, say that Germany conquered their land not with guns, like they tried the in all of the previous century, but with money. With money. The Germans basically said, "We steal your house, we steal your belongings, we steal your, well, the German political class at least." But I think they have some support from the German populace as well in this. We basically own you, and you can't do crap. Because if you do, you are nationalist, you're East, another East, another East, another East. And probably that people fall for that. They want an European Union, a federal European Union, so bad for a simple reason that so they can control everything. Because let's face it, the highest population is in Germany, in all of the European Union. The highest GDP per capita is in Berlin. The highest everything is in Germany. So they would control everything, and I would suspect that they would want a federal European Union for a simple reason that so people forget what they did 80 years ago. Well, 75 years ago when we all discovered the camps. So it's a collective guilt, not just a German guilt. Funny, eh? It's not my fault. It's all everybody's fault. And they want to keep import cheap labor. Only problem is that cheap labor just want to be safe. If that's the primary objective of that cheap labor, they open up the gates, expecting those people to work. 6 years ago, turns out that many of them weren't very nice people. Well, not the overwhelming majority, but you know who had to take the brunt of that little scam that Angela Merkel perpetrated? First and foremost, Greece and Italy, because they came to us like a flood, which was actually that we can't keep up. We barely can feed our people, and you expect us to feed others and take care of others. Yeah, That's why people vote League, not myself. I still don't feel I have a gun to the head, metaphorically speaking, to vote for a League. I'm not still not that desperate. But people get desperate. Our government hasn't lifted a finger to help us. They try to pretend they lift a finger for us, but they were first they weren't. They were slow to react. Second, they probably knew, thanks to our astronaut Parmitano, if I'm not mistaken, said I knew about the coronavirus in November. In November, they knew. That's a funny thing. They knew about it, but they didn't know. Third thing, they weren't able to rescue any Italian outside of Italy. Well, they did actually one. There's still thousands outside of Italy who haven't been able to return home for some reason, except those in China, if I'm not mistaken. Fourth and foremost, they adopted a very authoritarian rule just because of the emergency. Isn't that funny? Five, they instituted task forces to do the job of the health ministry, which by the way was added. One of them was added by Vodafone. There was one scientist or one doctor in it, and the others were just from private enterprises. Yeah, Colau. They even wanted immunity. They even wanted immunity because they already knew that they would duck up everything. Funny enough, no? Not only that, but one of our heads of the civil protection, Arcuri, is the one who wants the emergency to last until January of next year. Which, nobody wants that. Nobody. Except the politicians that are in power right now. So they can excuse themselves, they can save themselves from guilt. By the way, they try to question Fontana, the governor of Lombardia, one of the most heavily hit regions by the coronavirus. They even try to guilt him of the proper response, which, by the way, Lombardy has the best, still has the best healthcare system in all of Italy. And it's probably one of the best in Europe, if it wasn't that we are constantly overwhelmed and our health workers are constantly overworked. Yeah. And they try to put the blame. The five-star movie is so hypocritical. They try to put the blame on Lombardy, which, by the way, was you guys were lucky that Lombardy and all the other northern regions actually try to, actually try to. Yeah, it's so funny. They were lucky because, for a simple reason that it was the first, and we realized that. Then there was the red zone that Fontana. It wasn't his role to institute a red zone in Lombardy. It was Conte's job to do that. But Conte isn't going in front of the judiciary for that. Funnily enough, right? Not only that, but the Conte solution for business that closed or are closing is not only putting more blame on them if one of their workers has contracted coronavirus, which would basically mean they have to close completely, but putting more rules and asking those same workers and industries, bars and restaurants, to get more in depth with Italian banks, and he asks banks to do an act of love, which they can do thanks to Italian law. Not only that, but they seem to care more about foreign workers here than Italians. There are plenty of Italians who are jobless right now and would go to work in agriculture. But Mr. Bellanova minister, who cried crocodile tears when she realized her dream of helping those poor migrants who were used. She forgets the fact that she didn't help anyone with the sanatorium she did. the sanatoria. I don't know how you call it in English. The some of actually a lot of immigrant protested that because it didn't help actually anyone. There was even a Senegalese woman legally resident in Italy, married to an Italian man, that he said, "You're not helping us legal immigrants here in Italy." I mean, if even this woman realized that, do you think you did a good job, Bellanova? No, you didn't. Plain and simple as that. You didn't a good job. Not one bit. And you know why? It's because you're incompetent. You're just a barrel. That's what you are. A barrel of wine. Only the problem is that you are fermented wine, which is over fermented, to be honest, which is not a good type of wine. And the Five Star Movement, it's completely turned into turncoats. One probably didn't, because one of the senators that voted against Salvini going to court was actually a still current member of the Five Star Movement. Another one was an expelled senator, expelled from the movement, not from the Senate, because they can't do that legally. And they turned into the bad copy of the Democratic Party of Italy, not the one in the United States or other countries, which they even foreshadowed, like when they first tried to form a government with them, not last year, but when they actually went in coalition with the League. They even said, we agree with Salvini, put us all in prison then. And now they're voting for him to go to court. You guys should go to court for being traitorous scumbags. You, not Salvini. Salvini may be want to have an Italy in its own image, together with Meloni and others, but he actually cares about Italy nowadays. Much more than you guys do. Grillo, you're an absolute despisable individual. Not only a year ago you sided with Lula, the most corrupt Brazilian politician of all time. I think that not even the military presidents of the military governments that went for 21 years were as much corrupt as Lula. To be honest, I think even the Lula predecessors were more honest than him. To be completely frank, Beppe Grillo, you're just an ignorant, despicable person. And now I just realized that you made the biggest jokes of all time in Italy. You created a party that now helps no one. Just a bad copy of the Democratic Party. For some reason, you betrayed all your ideals, you turned them inside out, and you enjoy the popularity you have. You haven't done anything if you're not making things worse for Italy. We are some missive country, we are kind of a joke of a country, and it clearly showed with Di Maio. In 17 days ago, it clearly showed that Di Maio was a joke. He's no longer head of the Five Star Movement, but he's still foreign minister, and he has done an awful job of being that. So much so that we have changed sides again in a war, in the Libyan civil war, we've changed sides, and probably we have changed sides in the Syrian civil war also, but hey, everything good, right? Perfectly fine. Returning to Salvini, the most funny thing or absurd thing was the silence from Italian media. Barely anyone talked about it. I don't know what the helicopter sees, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's a military helicopter watching all over us. Because yes, they even approved of drones to surveil us, or they didn't, but they're still surveilling us some way, and they still pretend that everything is good. The Democratic Party wants to vote in this July, or even this August, or even this September. It's not clear that, but it's pretty clear that the Democratic Party and the Five Star Movement are lost all reason to exist. They shouldn't even exist anymore. Both of these parties they no longer represent the interests of Italy, and but someone the we say stanchi voti. There's still people in regions like Emilia, Tuscany, and few others that actually vote for them because they don't know who to give, but they actually have options. They actually have options. Not only that, another thing about Salvini is strangely, but apparently Matteo Renzi actually saved Matteo Salvini for some reason. Because you see, Matteo Renzi is a snake in the grass. Is I think he represents perfectly the turncoat nature of Italian politicians. That it's according to polls, he just have 1%, 1.3% of intention of voting from Italian voters. I think he's trying to save himself, despite his party is overrepresented. 30 deputies or something in the Chamber of Deputies in Parliament, which are most of them are defectors from the Democratic Party. They have no reason to exist. Just like a first time movement. Elections next time will be very, very absurd. I never imagined a world like this, honestly. It seems that I am waking up from a bad LSD induced and wine infused dream. I don't do LSD, and thank God I don't, because I've seen people getting completely wrecked up by that stuff. Wine, from time to time, yes, right. I did especially good, especially from Tuscany and Sicily. I think Sicily does it best. Now Conte even wants adds even more words to it. He just we're doing this, and this and that. There's billions for us. Meanwhile, by the way, there's still people that their business is failing because of all the rules you're doing. Some people won't open just so because it's impossible to for them to follow all those rules. I mean, we already have a big chunk of rules that we have to follow for even thinking about opening a business, and you think us that with even more rules, which by the way we have to wash, clean, and everything and sanitize everything twice a day if you are a restaurant, a bar, or anything. There's now the option that many are taking, that they're trying to take their bar more outside with chairs, tables, and so on, which by the way our industry is primarily that food and autos and other stuff related to that. We are a tourist friendly country. We could still be if it wasn't for you, Conte. Nobody wants the emergency to last until 2021. By the way, some politicians actually are willing, sorry, not willing, but wishing that the epidemic stays longer, because the virus is we already seen that it's kind of dying down. It's been becoming tamer and tamer as the day pass, because we are actually in summer, and the virus probably has less chance to infect someone if there's like a warmer temperature. But of course our politicians don't want that, because so they can justify them being in power. Conte especially, which is funny. Conte, from being a quiet man, lawyer of the people, became the most tyrannical figures Italy has seen in 80 years. Well, 75 years since the death of Mussolini. And that bold hell that procured us so many troubles that still haunt us to this day. I haven't seen, in all my lifetime, I haven't seen someone so tyrannical in Italy. Well, I thought about Renzi, but Renzi was a ridiculous, childish, childish brat in parliament, in power, who was by the way he was an unelected. You know, there's in Chuso these old schemes that people try to put themselves into power or in position of power, which allowed they kind of scramble together like an like scrambled eggs. Everyone gets a piece of that. Where this also happened in the past, but usually it was for the best in the case of Italy, where parties like the Partito Liberale Italiano or Liberal Party of Italian Liberal Party managed to get a few ministers in it. But nowadays there's no reason for that. We should change completely our electoral system. We should get away with many things here, and I hope the next elections we actually get something. But I know the next elections could go two ways. The first, Salvini actually gets a majority together with the Brothers of Italy, and the Democratic Party just becomes a noisy clique of individuals together with the Five Star Movement and Più Europa plus Europe and Free and Equals, ridiculous party. You either are free or you are equal. You have to choose one of the two. Because I have actually an argument because why you can't be both, because I consider them unethical to each other, like they nullify each other. The only argument you could make for being both free and equal, but to a very low degree, it's Sweden. But Sweden, it's a meme country, even more than Italy nowadays. Even though I had to make a, I didn't never thought possible that I would clap my hand in compliment to compliment a guy like Stefan Löfven, because I actually loathe people like Stefan Löfven, but he actually said we will keep our country open. There's gonna be no lockdown, no blocking. Everyone takes its own responsibility. That's that. And he actually did well, compliments. We should have done the same as Italy. I don't care if people think that there will be more people dead. So, for a disease that it's grave, I'm not saying that it's not a simple thing, you put under house arrest 60 million people. 60 million people. Yeah. Where's the reasoning in that? There's no reasoning, actually. It's just a strategy of fear to promote this government, which, by the way, everybody has understood that. And by the way, why the health ministry actually advised all of the physicians, medics, doctors to not perform autopsies? We are the only country doing that, as far as I know. They're recommended not to perform autopsies, but there's many doctors actually said, please let us make autopsies. If it seems like a long list of conspiracies, well, it actually probably is, for the simple reason that that everybody seems to working against Italy or against the general welfare of the world to favor delirious schemes of power from either China or unknown third parties. That's all. See you guys next time.